Welcome to this session. This one is titled Future Travel Experience, the Role of E-Commerce and Technology. So my name is Frode Skulbru. I'm a partner with Modalis. We're based here in Vancouver. And today I have two guests with me, Elizabeth Brown, who's the president of TBI US and Orlando Sanford International Airport in Florida. And we got Parm, Sidhu, who's the airport general manager at Abbotsford Airport here in British Columbia. Maybe, Elizabeth, you want to say a few words about yourself before we get into the topics?
Oh, sure. I'm a career airport executive, specializing working in privatized airports around the world. I've been fortunate enough to work in places like Montego Bay, Jamaica, San Diego, and now I find myself here in Orlando, Sanford, in one of the only real true PPP relationships here between an airport authority and a private operator. The company I'm with, TBI US Operations, has been here for over 20 years, and we have an agreement that will see us here for another 20 years. And I'm fortunate enough to be the president that not only runs the terminal parking and ramp control, but I also have the joy of providing ground handling, which certainly has its challenges on a day-to-day basis. We are actually owned by Vinci Airports, one of the largest privatized airport operators based out of Paris, France, and count ourselves among the 45 airports that they operate around the world.
Great, thank you. Parm?
Well, thank you, Frode, and I look forward to working with Elizabeth on this panel. So I'm Parm Sidhu, the Airport General Manager in Abbotsford. My career has only been with this airport. We were part of the devolution of airports in 1997. The city took ownership of this asset, I called Abbotsford International Airport, and I've been at the airport since 2001, grown in various different roles since then, from terminal duty officer to operations manager to director of operations. And now my current role as Airport General Manager, in charge of profit loss, business continuity, safety, emergency, everything. At a small airport, yeah, you can become a specialist of everything. And your days change from day to day. So I look forward to participating in the panel.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So true homegrown talent, you can say that. I put together a couple of slides just to kind of set the stage a little bit, and then we can have a bit of a discussion. We all talk about technology at airports like if it didn't exist today, but there's a lot of technology already, of course. Anything from reservations, check-in, information about flights, self-service, check-in kiosks, even voice activated now, I see. Baggage handling, that's been kind of taken over by machines instead. E-tags is coming, biometric is possibly coming. There's e-commerce platforms you can shop both for the airports and airlines. There's a lot of stuff on the operational efficiency side, apron management, etc. Immigration and border crossing, the Vancouver International Airport has sold, I think, thousands of these self-service kiosks, and there's probably other solutions around. So it's all there, but a lot of it's related to operations. So we're going to talk more about kind of the passenger integration of technology. A couple of things. A McKinsey survey came out a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago actually, where they interviewed 2,500 consumers in 4 countries. And what they found is that the consumer kind of digital adaptation has kind of leapfrogged 10 years in 90 days, primarily because of the pandemic, as we all know. So it means there's a change of kind of patterns and behavior. People shop more and more online and get more and more of their information online. Personal shopping experiences are coming, or they're already here. Connectivity, Wi-Fi, everything in the hold rooms, and then seamless boarding. All those getting more and more towards using machines rather than staff, checking your boarding passes. Just one more kind of figure from that survey. 40% of the people stated that they've changed their behavior. They're buying new brands, they're buying from other retailers than before. So it'd be interesting to see how that can impact shopping, once we get back to whether it's a new normal or some form of normal. Of course, there's a lot of interest in this omni-channel type concept where there's a seamless kind of integration between a brick and mortar store, which we have at airports, mobile solutions, web-based solutions, and social media. So with that, maybe we can open up for a little. Parm, I know you have some thoughts around that whole chain of using and integrating technology in the travel experience.
Yeah, thank you, Frode. So, our thoughts at Abbotsford International is that our business model empowers airlines, and we build our success through their success. So we're an ultra low-cost airport, ULCA, that builds its brand to the successes of the airlines. And our whole goal is to make air travel more affordable and accessible for Canadians. We're an O&D airport, start point and end point, and our whole mandate and our whole ecosystem provides value, experience-based, end-to-end couch journeys is where we want to go. And it's all about the airlines, Swoop Airline Services, Abbotsford, and so with WestJet. From 2015 to 2019, we were amongst Canada's fastest growing airports with a model that aligns with ultra low cost carriers. We're the Costco of airports, high value, ultra low cost, and we allow the airlines to manage their guests starting from curb to gate, but eventually we want to go couch to couch. So we believe digital is the future, and digital innovations will put all the airport processes in your home through voice activation, from booking your flight to tagging your bag at home, weighing your bag at home, and the airport portion has just become smaller and smaller, and the digital platform takes you couch to couch.
I guess a lot of those components already exist today. The question is, how do you integrate it in one platform so you can actually, from the booking process all the way through? And Elizabeth, I think Vinci is working on various solutions on that type of concept.
Yes, you have. Actually, in the beginning of October, Vinci Airports actually announced the development of really an end-to-end online app solution that's really based on biometrics and facial recognition. And what they're trying to do is much like what Parm is saying, trying to make things seamless for the traveler in an inexpensive way, so that they can do everything from their check-in at home, sitting on their couch the night before, to pre-ordering all of their goods that they may want to purchase as they travel through the airport, and then taking care of their arrival when they arrive at their destination. It's a really creative way of looking at the solution and trying to find ways that makes it easier for the passenger to move through the airport and move through the entire travel experience. And when you now overlay this with the COVID and what's happened with the pandemic, this is really trying to push forward the idea of a completely touchless solution for passengers as they move through our airport terminals and onto the aircraft. I think it's a very creative solution that they've come up with. But it will really take partnership, for these types of things to be successful. You need not only the airport, but you need to partner with your airlines. And there needs to be, I think, a new way of thinking and how we not only approach technology, but make the technology really work for the consumer. For example, developing ways that they can pre-order their needs as they move through the airport terminal building, and also developing on the product that's going to be relevant to them. I don't know that the buying patterns that we've traditionally seen by airport passengers are going to remain the same. I think that we need to find ways to differentiate the product and make sure that we push that product out to the passenger as they move through the terminal building. That's going to take a pretty integrated approach with your commercial partners, and using technology to do that. What I also find that's really interesting, particularly here in the United States, and this is again coming out of the pandemic, is that really we've seen people widely now embrace the use of technology and online ordering, whereas I think there was a lot of reluctance before. You did see, a fair bit with Amazon, but now here in the US, you can purchase anything and everything online, have it ordered, never have to talk to anybody. And even all the way down to a car. You can have a car purchased on an app and have it delivered to your door and get a 30-day money-back guarantee. And I think all of that's really going to help us to push along the technology. It's like you said, Frode, we've jumped 10 years in the last 6 months coming out of this pandemic. And I think it's also pushed the creation of a lot of those experts who are developing these apps to understand how effective that they can be and how people will be really responsive if you make them really user friendly. This airport here in Orlando, Sanford, we do see much like about Abbotsford, we're a destination airport. And we have a lot of older people that move through this airport. We don't really have business traffic to speak of. And traditionally, they've been reluctant to use technology, and we've seen that evolve. We've introduced a license plate reading system for our parking. So now parking is virtually touchless. And these older people who've traditionally been a little reluctant have now really embraced that. And I think I would never want to say there's any silver linings to this horrible thing that's happened to our industry. But if you could say that any benefits come out of it, it's really pushed the need and the involvement of technology in our day-to-day lives in a way that we've never seen before.
And if you combine with some artificial intelligence, that it increases your utilization of your facilities as well, because you can control lineups, you can probably manage your parking better, because everything is, every single spot that's occupied at any given time and which one is reserved and not reserved.
And you can do it from a yield management perspective as well. I mean, you can do dynamic pricing based on demand. So, if you only have 5 spots left in your parking garage, which is the only covered parking area that you have on your airport, you can increase your pricing and impact demand and supply that way. And I think that we've not looked at those things as creatively as we could have in the past. And really, this is now being pushed very quickly on us. And I think it's exciting to see how people are really embracing all of these new ideas and how we can do that. And at the end of the day, I mean, what I do is I operate privatized airports. It's really about how can we monetize that and how can we increase our revenue and how can we improve the yield against the cost that we're putting into that for whatever it is that we're trying to implement.
But do you see, it creates opportunities for sure, but do you also see that what's the airport's role in this? Because it becomes bigger and bigger in the sense that a true integration means integrating technology way beyond the airport systems. Does that create a threat to the airport's kind of revenue model and business model? Because you don't really have to buy anything at the airport. You can buy it anywhere.
Well, and that's kind of goes back to my idea about that. I think you really need to find ways to differentiate your product and really incorporate your local sense of place to really make sure that you have things available at the airport that are truly unique. For us here in the Orlando area, there are unique things that we can be able to put on offer here that you wouldn't be able to find at just any other airport. And I think that's really, it's going to be important. And I think while we might be reluctant to see a sharing of revenues and sort of that approach from a partnership perspective, I think at the end of the day, if we hold on to the idea that we embrace these types of partnerships, that overall will probably stimulate our overall revenue. I don't think we're going to be hurting ourselves. I think we're only going to be helping ourselves. And hopefully everybody will come along with us to see what those opportunities are.
Mm.
Yeah, Frode, to build on that, the more you do away from the bricks and mortar, the more cheaper and more efficient it will be. The more you do in closer, the higher the price, the dynamic pricing that comes into play. It is going to become about volume-based business and understanding volume-based airports and sharing that distribution of the sales. If you sell it, you deserve a cut, is our opinion. If the airlines are going to sell something through their portal directly, whether it's a car rental or food and beverage at the airport, they deserve a stake in that or a cut of that cut, right? But the more you do in airport directly through the airport channels, that's a different game altogether. But it is going to become doing more away. Anything you do at the airport will be reactive, in our opinion. The more will be done well away from the airport. And travel is being segmented. It will all get tied into one end-to-end journey. And we all have a role to play, from ground transportation, in-airport, airlines. But who owns the passenger is always being debated. Is it the airport? Is it the airline? At the end of the day, the passenger will own the passenger, and let them be empowered to make their decision through lower cost travel, lower cost end-to-end journeys, and value experiences. And let's increase the number of people that fly. Yeah,
and maybe that is it's the volume that's, and a different charging model. I mean, you see some privatized airports, you charge for the facilities, and if you can generate more revenue, that's great. But the airport still needs to be there. There needs to be a place where you arrive and you walk through something, and there's a place where the planes take off. So, but getting back to the retail side of things, I think you're right. I mean, if you look at that omni-channel model, you see a lot of places now, there's just these tiny pop-up stores, and they don't have any inventory, so they don't need much space. There's no storage facility or anything. There's one model of each. If it's clothing, it's the different sizes with one of each color or something. And you can try that, but then you order it and it's delivered to you. So you don't have to carry that inventory and you don't need all that space. So in a terminal building, you could have a very different kind of experience, that the brick and mortar remains there, but in a much smaller kind of fashion, or maybe way more or many more stores compared to what you have today.
Exactly. So, you know, it's all about distribution power and making a transaction on your mobile device. The goods can be drop shipped to your house. Example, duty free is a prime example of how the legislation says you have to have it with you. Well, if the algorithms know that Parm was out of the country in Vegas for 72 hours and my allowance is X, as long as I declare that, you know, it could be Costco that ships the product to my house at the end of the day. Do I necessarily have to carry it with me? So, you know, the omni-channel opportunity is massive, but there is risks within that, because the airport will lose control of some of the channels that they have historically have made money through duty-free, you know, sales at the airport. We control the transaction at the airport. Well, the transaction goes to your phone or into someone else's distribution power. You know, you start losing control of where the transaction happens. You don't know where it is, right?
Yeah, and I think also we'll gradually see sort of an evolution of what is available at the airport. You'll probably see more food and beverage, more stronger emphasis on food and beverage, because it's something that's a consumable that you could pre-order. You could order from the gate, or you could pre-order and have it ready for when you arrive. But as we see airlines offering less and less of food on board, and certainly right now they're not offering anything because of the pandemic, then you're going to see, I think, a little bit more focus on the food and beverage offering and that kind of an experience. And then going a little bit further on the experience, what can you do inside the airport in order to really take advantage of that? You know, can you create zones that really stimulate particular types of buying? So where people used to buy based on a specific need, now you're going to have to try and stimulate them. You need to incentivize that passenger to purchase something. And part of that might be maybe it's an experiential type of something. It's a pop-up that's focused on children that sits in front of your retail store that has pushed a lot of the types of unique product that's focused on young people. You know, I think that there's going to be a little bit more of that element at an airport as opposed to the traditional kind of buying that we used to see over the last, you know, decades.
Yeah, and you know, COVID is basically I'm not a economist, but it's a depression really for the industry. We've never seen anything like this. And there's a big difference between a recession and depression. Depressions cause behavioral changes, and that's what you're going to see coming out of this. We are fundamentally going to see different behaviors, as you mentioned earlier, Frode. And I think anything's up for grabs, but at the end of the day, it has to be collaborative with the airline partners and the airports and the whole ecosystem. And it has to be a win-win for all of us, understanding we all have a role to play. We all need to be sustainable. We all need to be safety first. But, you know, we know one entity can drive it more than the other. But if the whole ecosystem lives, breathes value, I think we can increase the number of people that fly and increase those number of journeys. We got to make it more efficient and more friendly. And an airport like ours, it's all about reducing the time at the airport. For VFR and leisure, you know, your holiday begins once you're airborne. You know, we got a simple Costco type of warehouse of high value, low cost. That's what our client base wants, and every airport will have a different response to that depending on what your client is like.
Great. I got one question from a participant here. If you can talk a little bit more about the way facial recognition and other, call them invasive technologies, can affect the travel experience. Because I mean, one reason with biometrics, and it's been an issue, is how is it stored? What does it tell you about that person? And that can that data be used? So there's some reluctance there. Any thoughts around those areas?
Well, certainly here in the United States, that is a very hot topic right now. So what's happening is the U.S. Customs and Border Protection they're in their process of updating all of their technology and using inbound biometrics. And in order for any airport to take advantage of those inbound technologies, you actually have to have the outbound ready to go because it's part of the end-to-end. So making sure that somebody who is traveling outside of the country, or as an American or as a foreign person traveling outside the country, has that indeed left. And what's happening in Washington is a lot of reluctance to push this forward as fast as it was going, even 8 months ago, because of the protection of data concerns. And I do think that is a concern, it's an issue. But it does make you think, though, that if you are starting to put this more into somebody's phone and on their app, then there's inherently better protections already in place on smartphones than maybe on some of that technology that you might see at boarding, and not having it go into a third-party domain where you're not really sure where that data is going to go. We are also concerned. We've made, as an airport operator, we've made some significant investment into outbound biometrics in anticipation of these changes. And we are concerned that there's going to be a bit of a pullback until they can really lock down that data and make sure that people feel it's safe. Beyond than just protecting the borders of inbound and outbound of any country.
You would think that that the safety side. I mean, if you look at some relatively simple app and like banking systems and stuff like that, there's a double kind of confirmation. So if it was on your phone, let's say it's a barcode or something that's been tracked, and then there is a pin that you have, like the person who's carrying it has to confirm somehow that it's encrypted, and then it's being released right there, and then not used at that site afterwards, not stored anywhere. It's actually stored in your phone, for example.
Yeah.
And on a device that you have approved that this is my phone. It's no one else's phone.
Yeah.
Because
it's more proprietary and unique to the individual.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or tattoo a barcode on your forehead. And
there's a movie about that, isn't there?
So I'm sure there is. That will take care of it.
I would agree. I agree with Elizabeth and everything is said so far. Is when I'm speaking on an average Canadian that's lives in Canada, flying within Canada, or to a sun destinations where Canadians either own a home or asset. I believe Canada could be first to market with some sort of digital identity that allows the person to control it in their cell phone. Let's face it, there's risk in everything. Your passport can get taken, your paperwork can get taken, your phone can get taken, but it should be encrypted to your cell phone. And, it should be in a back end probably that's owned by government. And the whole goal is to make travel more accessible and affordable. Whether, I'm already preloaded everything on my trip to Vegas and fly through Abbotsford, and all I do is hit send on the way back, and they know exactly who I am. My e-deck is already filled out, and they know exactly who I am, and because I submitted everything. But the data belongs to me in my personal blockchain or something like that, or my phone only. I don't release it to anyone else, only for their direct use, and I get it back right away.
Yeah. I think that we're going to, in the coming, years, see a lot of changes from government trying to regulate or trying to lock that down. Again, certainly here in Washington, D.C., there's a lot of discussion about that, about how to protect that data, how to lock it down, how to give that sense of confidence to the passenger. But I think inevitably that's going to be the way it goes. I mean, I think we want to make everything as seamless and easy as possible. And you overlay some of the constraints that we've seen with the pandemic, you now want to really make things touchless, whether it's the point of sale or whether it's pre-ordering. And if the more you can do through somebody's individual phone and protecting the data there, I think the better it's going to be, and probably where this will evolve probably quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, and it touches a little bit of what I mentioned the earliest. I mean, to me, the biggest bottleneck right now is security. Because of that manual, you're lining up, you take off what you can take off without, still staying decent. Take out your toothpaste and, all that stuff. So, I mean, another way is like if you have biometrics, it takes care of the person, but you still have the carry-on.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a way, do you see a technology or a way to actually separate the two? Because if you automatically scan like you do with inline processing of baggage, of regular baggage, checked-in baggage, it will move much faster through the system. But then you have to reconnect it with the passenger on the other side.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think in my view, you started to see some technology. I've certainly seen this come across my desk where There is walk-through technology where passengers are not required to divest anything. They simply walk through almost like a tunnel that is acting like a sophisticated, CT scan that is not harmful, but is being able to check to ensure that people are following all the security regulations and be able to detect any concerns. And I think that is where that's going to go. Ultimately, you want just people to continue walking through. You don't want them to have to stop and have that interaction. And again, this pandemic's going to push that faster because people don't want to be touched. They don't want to touch the things around the X-ray machines. I know we do all of the cleaning in the terminal building, and we do sanitization of every single divesting bin every night just to ensure that it's clean because of the reluctance people that have. So I think ultimately it's going to be a walkthrough process that's going to use biometrics when you come up to security, and then you walk through and they can see like the full body scan, that they'll be able to see what you're carrying, and that's really going to make it easier for everyone.
Yeah, so bringing your bag with you, everything's scanned in one place. Yeah, even better.
Yeah. And I think that there's technologies out there that are getting there. The Dormacabas of the world are starting to really focus on that to see how they can try and make that a smooth experience and really avoid the bottleneck. Because you're absolutely right, Frode. I mean, the biggest complaint that we all get as airport operators is invariably security. And yet the thing that everybody's most concerned about invariably is aviation security. So you want to make sure it's a pretty robust process. But anything that we can do to make it easier for passengers, I think it's going to be really welcomed by everybody in the industry.
Parm, any closing remarks?
No, thank you for this opportunity. I think our goal is aligned. At the end of the day, it can make us make travel more affordable and accessible for all, and increase the number of people that fly.
Yeah, in electric airplanes, so there's no more.
Electric planes. Yeah, I think everything that's happened is going to really stimulate a lot of partnerships and people across the industry shaking hands to try and find ways to really make improvements and really drive the change through technology and to really move forward quickly. And I think that that's going to be the best thing that's going to be coming out of the disaster that we've seen of 2020.
Yeah, maybe this forces a closer kind of relationship between the airline and the airport, like a true partnership, more kind of, and a more integration between operations of each side. So anyway, thank you so much, and thanks for the guests that's been here, and that's it.